Hey everybody, it's Trigger Bar Philosopher. Welcome back out to the channel. Today we have another test in our 380 ACP ammo series. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Federal Punch, and we're going to be shooting it through our Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 and our Ruger Security 380. Should be a good time. Let's get to shooting. Okay, well, we've done a lot of tests in this video series so far. Today we're going to be taking a deeper look at the Federal Punch. Now, I showed this in an earlier video in this series where I shot it into gel and I reviewed the Federal Punch, but I didn't have any clothing in front of it, and I also didn't have my new contraption where I use medium density fiberboard after 2 inches of gel. So we're going to reshoot that today. Also, I never shot it with the Security 380. And as you can tell, these two guns are very different guns, and in my belief, they have very different intended purposes. The Bodyguard 2.0, as you can tell with my hand, is a fantastic gun. It fits easily in my hand. I have large hands, so that's the glove size that I wear, and I can easily get all 3 fingers around it. When I take a look at the Security 380, without the extended grip in it, I can't get that on, even though this gun is so much bigger. So the ergonomics are different, but then I think their intended purpose is different. I believe that the Bodyguard 2.0 is certainly one of the best pocket carry options that is out there, and the Security 380 is, in my opinion, a gun that is a smooth shooter, fun to shoot, and then especially for those who are losing their grip strength, as we're all aging, whether you believe it or not. If you're 20 years old, you are aging. You could be female, you could be someone of smaller stature, you could be someone who just doesn't like recoil and it's no fun to you. And I think that this gun is a fantastic option for that. So I think home defense, plinking, but I do think it probably has more of a niche for a certain type of individual when you're going to, because this is as big a gun as you're going to have for 9mm. In fact, they make a Security 9, and it's also a great gun. So why wouldn't you go up in power? I think the reason that you wouldn't do that is maybe laws local to you, whether you're in this country or not, or your grip strength and your ability to handle the recoil of it. So again, I think that these have 2 intended purposes, but we're going to compare them today. I'm not going to compare them like which is better or not. That's not the intended purpose. We're going to see ballistically how they perform in gel and how they compare in gel when we're testing this Federal Punch. In my first test, the Federal Punch did a great job. I want to see how it performs with clothing and the medium density fiberboard. Should be a good time. Let's get to shooting. Okay, if you haven't seen our new and improved test setup, what we have here is we have 4 layers of clothing. We have 2 layers of t-shirt, 2 layers of denim, followed by 2 inches of gel that are hidden by this wooden contraption that holds the gel in place, followed by 16 inches of gel, followed by another 16 inches of gel. So we'll do a shot with the Bodyguard 2.0, we'll do a shot with the Ruger Security 380, we'll flip the block around, and then we'll insert some MDF at this point in here and see how they perform. So we'll get 2 tests, one without the MDF and one with the MDF. Both of them are going to be with clothing today though. That's our testing setup. Let's move on. Quick look, this is the Federal Punch. Looks like a very traditional jacketed hollow point. All right, well, we have our Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0. We have our Garmin Zero C1, and we're going to try to get a ballistic reading and velocity reading from this, but oftentimes that doesn't work. So I will do a series after this, just in case to see what types of velocities we're getting with these 85 grain Federal Punch projectiles.
Just using the scope. Safety is on.
After I load a round into the chamber. Okay, taking a look at what happened, it came in through the layers of t-shirt, through the 2 inches of gel, and then got out to about the just over 12, almost actually got a little past 13.5 inches when we consider the bounce back. You look at that wound track, you may not think, hey, that's a great wound track, but in terms of 380 ACP, it got great expansion. That's a great performer so far. We'll have to see what happens when we put the MDF in, but the Federal Punch is proving again to be a pretty good round. Now, I wish its velocity was higher than the 881. That's kind of in line with what the box is telling me, and for this Smith & Wesson Bodyguard, please note and please congratulate me on finally buying yet another tape measure. And for those less than 2% of you who are not inside the United States, we even have metric. So I could tell you that it was at about 34 centimeters of penetration. Yeah, so all 6 of you, I don't know, maybe 3 of you. Next up, we have the Ruger Security 380, and we have that 85 grain Federal punch. One of the nice things about this Ruger Security 80 is that it has a 1 in 10 twist, very similar to the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard. What I like about that, with that 1 in 10 twist, is it allows us to do a pretty fair comparison. Let's see if we can get a measurement on the Garmin. 921.1. Okay, we're going to have to take a look at this when we pull it out, because this result is pretty confusing. It's pretty impressive. This wound track, it's the further one at the back, if you can see it. Looks like, to me, there's probably a lot of tumbling. With 380 ACP, it's difficult to find rounds that penetrate deep enough. And these are both penetrating plenty deep. So they're going out past that 12 inches, and that is including t-shirt. And thing, not that t-shirt will slow it down any. It does impact how the hollow point expands. So I think it's a little bit more reliable result. The clear ballistic gel is not the best medium. Of course, we'd love to use organic gelatin, but that's a pain in the butt to work with. Hats off to the people that do it, but you got to keep that at a certain temperature. I don't have the fridge space to make it and keep it that cold. And so, yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another barrier. I'm going to add some medium density fiberboard. Now, of course, this wasn't my idea. This is an idea from Gun Sam. Dan the Wolfman helped me think about ways to improve my setup, so I appreciate that. But again, one difference that I do from Gun Sam is that I do 2 inches. I think he does 3 inches or 4 inches of gel in front of it. And so just gives a little bit different information and data, and then I have different guns than Gun Sam has. Okay, now that we have the medium density fiberboard in, actually I'm going to pause the camera and I'm going to flip the gel around so that we can get a better look going perhaps the other way with these rounds. We have the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 with the 85 grain Federal punch. We'll see how it does, and we'll see if we can capture the velocity with the Garmin. See if we caught that. 886.8. Okay, we're going to take a quick look. This is where the round entered, right over here. It is right in front. Yay, Trigger Bar, you got one to come. Looks like it expanded very well. I'm not seeing a difference in expansion. And again, out to about 12 inches, that's with the medium density fiberboard. Oftentimes I see less penetration when you add in this medium density fiberboard. Taking a quick look at what happened to it. Looks like it did get some decent expansion in that first 2 inches of gel, so that's good news. We'll stick it back in. I'll pull all of these shots out once we get our final shot here. Okay, we've got the Ruger Security 380 with the Federal Hydra punch, and I keep wanting to say HydroShock Deep, with the Federal punch, and we have our medium density fiberboard in this time. Try to get a reading with the Garmin this time. Seems like things are working so far with that. Let's see if I can get the right angle on the shot. And we got 915. Okay, well, I removed the contraption and I took the medium density fiberboard off. This was the shot right over here with the Ruger Security 380. This is with the Bodyguard. I would say the Ruger Security 380 had just a little bit more expansion in that first 2 inches. The round that's up here at the top, because I spun the block. So this right here is our round. Now it was at the bottom, and we just couldn't see it very well, so I had to take it out. So it got to about the 9-inch mark, and then all the way out to maybe 9.5 inches, which is, again, for our friends, about 24 centimeters. I think it got a little bit more expansion, and which is interesting because I will have to pull these rounds out now next and see, but we got a lot more penetration with the Bodyguard, so that probably tells me we got more expansion with the Ruger Security 380 with that higher velocity. We'll pull these out and see, though, instead of just guessing with it. I got all of these pulled out. These are some interesting results. This is the Bodyguard 2.0 with no medium density fiberboard. This is the Security 380 at a higher velocity with no medium density fiberboard. As we saw, it did a tremendous amount of damage in that gel, but it kind of just only started expanding. It got a lot of jean and other stuff, blue jean denim, caught up in it. And so it prevented it. But because it only partially expanded, it did all of that tumbling. And I see that consistently when we get partial expansion. We do get a lot of tumbling, and that, in my mind, does do a lot of damage. Now, I think one of the interesting things, though, is that what this tells me is it's on the verge of not expanding, which is odd because something going slower did expand. So I don't know what to think. I will say that the HydroShock Deep didn't reliably expand in some of these tests. This we at least got pretty reliable. Everything sort of expanded. We saw Hornady Critical Defense didn't expand at some velocities and at some points. So I think that's interesting. Another thing is that we saw more reliable expansion once we had the medium density fiberboard. I do think that could be that this clear ballistic gel is not a reliable representation of what sometimes these other bullets are designed with the organic gelatin. I think adding that medium density fiberboard tends to get us more in line with what results you see with the organic gel. Now, I put it in as a representation of some type of like bone, but just having just different materials that the bullets can pass through, I think also provides an opportunity for these things to expand, and that's going to be more realistic in what your intended target is. So again, this one is the Bodyguard 2.0, and this is the Ruger Security 380, and we saw that it did get more expansion. This was just on the verge of starting to get some expansion. That's why we saw some pretty good wound tracks. You can see it does have some denim still stuck in it. Maybe that's why it didn't expand more, but it got some decent expansion. These bullets look like XTP bullets, although I would say I think they get just a touch more expansion than those XTP bullets. So overall, I'm kind of liking the results we see out of this Federal Punch. I think it's a very viable self-defense round, the one that I would definitely be comfortable with. I think it's more available than some of the Federal HydroShock Deep and HST rounds and other things like that. It's often a little bit cheaper. And so I think that's something to consider, and I think a very viable self-defense round. Okay, we have 5 rounds of the Federal Punch loaded up in our Bodyguard 2.0, but it just gives you an idea of what these rounds will do out of the Bodyguard. Then we'll compare it to the Ruger Security 380. .893, 856, 858, 889, 855. Did I load one more, or did I hit the slide release? I hit the slide release. That sometimes happens. One of the reasons I do like to do these velocity tests, not that they're super interesting, is it just gives me more rounds on it so that I can see, is this reliable? We'll also do some accuracy shooting at the end. That also helps me tell if these are reliable. So far, it's working in the Bodyguard 2.0. Okay, for our session summary, we had a min of 855, a max of 893, an average of 870, swing spread of 37, standard deviation of 17, average kinetic energy of 143, which is on the low side. But again, you got some reliable expansion. 380's on the low side anyway, so up to you. 913, 955, 981, 944, 924. So for our 5 shots, we had a min of 913, average of 944, a max of 981, extreme spread of 68, and standard deviation of 23, and the average kinetic energy of 168. That's a nice pickup with the extra barrel length that we're getting out of that. Okay, we have 5 rounds, the Federal Punch, the Bodyguard 2.0. We're at about 5 yards. I like to shoot at that. All of my videos, I've done about 20 videos in this series now. And I always like to shoot at 5 yards because I think that's where these rounds, that's where this cartridge is going to be suited at. You're not going to shoot 40 yards, you're not going to shoot 15 yards. You shouldn't with 380 ACP. You saw in the gel, we're barely getting expansion. We're barely getting damage done in the gelatin. So we got 5 rounds. We're at 5 yards. Let's shoot. Well, I knew I had to screw that up. And boy, I am not getting lock back on this. Ooh, yeah, I don't know if I'm hitting that. I'm going to have to change my grip just a little bit. But if we go down range and look, that's not a bad group. And yes, that's annoying. And yes, that's me. And yes, that's annoying, as Paul Harrell would say. 5 yards again. We have the Ruger Security 380. We have 5 rounds of that Federal Hydroshock. I keep saying that. We have 5 rounds of the Federal Punch. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And I do need to drift these sights, and they can do it, but I think I did. I just didn't do it far enough, well, for this ammunition. But if we go on up and look at that, that's a pretty nice group. Not bad, not bad, not bad. These Ruger Security 380 does have very nice sights. At this point, I would be done. But because I've had those issues where it's not locking back properly, I'm going to try and get some shots on some steel targets that I have set up. Keep my thumb away. See if we get locked back on that. Okay, here we go. We got locked back. So it is me just hitting that thumb thing. It's very close, and my as I squeeze in tight, big meat on my hand hits it and causes it to not lock back. So that's good to see. Also, we had no failures for the whole day. That's a good video. All right, well, let's wrap things up. Today we had the Bodyguard 2.0 from Smith & Wesson and the Ruger Security 380. Mostly we were looking at the Federal Punch ammunition. And I would say overall, I'm pretty impressed with the Federal Punch. It ran reliably in both of these guns. The performance in the ballistic gel for 380 ACP was, I think, acceptable. Sure, would I have liked it a little bit better? Sure. Would I like the velocities a little bit better? Yes, I would have. But in terms of, did it perform? Did it expand? Did it get acceptable penetration depths? I thought it did a great job with it today. So I think this for sure, if you're looking for ammunition that'll run in your Bodyguard 2.0 or your Ruger Security 380, this is something to take a look at and then go home and test and see if it works for you. So I hope this has been instructive. I hope this has been somewhat entertaining. I hope everyone has a great week, and let's get to shooting.
Conceal, carry wisdom, good guy with a gun, self-defense strategies, we'll make it fun. Night vision gear on, we